going to introduce herself and her books now.
Hello, I'm Victoria Dowd, and I'm the writer of The Smart Woman's Guide to Murder, which I handily have here, a copy of. And the second book is coming out next week on the 23rd of February, and that's Body on the Island, which, as you can probably guess, there are some bodies involved in it and an island. So yeah, they're basically they're whodunits in the classic kind of whodunit sense, but with lots of dark humor, and they follow a group of women called the Smart Women. They're Pandora Smart is the narrator, although she's a bit of an unreliable narrator, and they go with their book club, first of all in the first book to an isolated country house, and then in the second book they decide they weren't very good at surviving that situation. They go on a survival course, sort of in a Bear Grylls kind of style, which isn't really their kind of comfort zone at all. And the murders begin, basically.
Exciting. I've read both. I really like the characters. How did you come up with the characters of the smart ladies?
Well, basically, I think I really wanted to write strong women in crime fiction, but not so much in professional roles. So obviously there's an awful lot of crime fiction out there that has very strong kind of legal professionals or police procedurals, etc. But I wanted normal kind of ladies who, you know, they're in a book group, which I think is quite a familiar sort of place for many readers. And they're also related to each other. And I come from quite a strong Yorkshire family with lots of very big female characters in it. None of whom I hasten to add are in the books, but there's that kind of relationship between them where, you know, on the surface it seems quite raw and sharp a lot of the time. But actually they're very tightly bonded together, and they don't care whether people think they're nice or not. I didn't want to write nice characters. I wanted to write women who we could relate to, you know, particularly on our bad days when you just think, oh, for God's sake, you know. So that, you know, the mother and daughter relationship especially, I really love writing. And it's great that it's a series because I don't have to squash it all into the first book. I can kind of take it a little further, and I wanted them to be more three-dimensional, basically.
Do you have an idea for how many books you'd write in the series?
I kind of had an idea of about sort of 4, I think. And I've got ideas for those 4. But whether or not I'd want to take that further as well, possibly, because you know, I love writing them, and I can't imagine at the moment life without writing them, to be honest, because they're kind of there all of the time, and there's so much more I wanted to do with them, especially exploring lots of the things to do with the father in the situation. For those people who haven't read it, he died a long time ago, but Ursula is quite scarred by her grief, and that was definitely something I wanted to explore with the women. That often murder mysteries, especially the kind of golden age detective series ones, there's a lot of death, obviously, but death isn't really at the center of the books and people's response to death. So I kind of wanted to explore their grief and put that right at the front of the book. So maybe 4, maybe more.
Will you have enough people left for 4?
Possibly. I'm considering adding in some more characters as it goes along. As I think, although they're a slightly defunct book group, I think that book groups do kind of get extra people, and the new person comes along and everybody's like, do we like this person? Do we like who suggested this person? And so, you know, yeah, exploring that might be quite good fun.
Someone on here says, which of the characters is most like you? There's always one.
Oh, which is most like me? Goodness me. I think I'm kind of a mix of Ursula and Pandora over time, I would say. My daughter massively thinks Ursula is her and I'm Pandora, but that is not the case at all. So yeah, I think because I've done them at different ages, they're almost how I remember being those different ages. But obviously there are lots of parts of them that are nothing like me at all.
So Sam wants to know, where did the idea for The Body on the Island come from? She started to read it one night and had to put it off until the next day as she knew she wouldn't sleep after that opening.
Oh, okay. The idea for The Body on the Island came, obviously I'm a huge fan of Agatha Christie because they're very golden age detection. And I love And Then There Were None. And I do actually live quite near Burr Island as well. And I love that concept of the island where people are in a completely different mindset when they're on an island, like island living. And it is quite hard. Well, it was quite hard to isolate people from society. But also, I was looking through lots and lots of photographs, and I saw these utterly beautiful photographs taken by this guy. And they're of this house on an uninhabited island. And there's nobody obviously living in the house anymore, but it's kind of a manor house. There's just the one house and the one chapel. And he's taken these most beautiful photographs of the decay that's happening there and how it's all decomposing. Beautiful four-poster with kind of pink silk that's all frayed and hanging. And I just thought, what a fantastic place for a murder mystery. So yeah, that's where Body on the Island. It's not actually, the name of the island is not the same as the real island that I based it on. I changed the name.
Would you be tempted to set a book in a kind of classical Christie location?
Well, I'd love to. I think that might be taking it a bit far. I sort of thought of trains. I quite like the idea of trains a lot. And the third book is going to be set on Dartmoor, and she set quite a lot of her books on Dartmoor. And this is kind of in a small village that is very Agatha Christie-esque, very Sisterford. So yeah, definitely. But I think only in paying homage to her.
Catherine Nash says, which smart woman is your favourite?
I think I'd have to say Ursula, because I love them all, obviously, but Ursula is the narrator and everything is seen through her eyes. And I have to kind of inhabit her quite a lot of the time. But also, what I really love about writing her is that she's a really unreliable narrator. And you can see that immediately, that she almost says, you know, don't trust me though, because I might be telling you a few lies along the way, or I might get things slightly wrong. So, and I love doing that with her. I love the fact that you see her and you think you know who she is, and then she switches track all of a sudden. And you think, in the first one, I wanted the slight insinuation that she might be more bad than you imagine she is.
Charlie wants to know, are book groups dangerous where you're based?
Gosh, that's a tricky one, actually, and a very good question. The book group I'm in at the moment is lovely, and I hasten to make sure everybody knows that that is not the book group. But over time, I think, like a lot of people, I've been in a lot of book groups, and some are good, some are not so good, and they are just this kind of melting pot of people, a little hive of all kinds of different personalities, lots of whom don't come for the books, I would say. So yeah, I've been in some extraordinary book clubs over time, and I just love that. Not at the time, obviously.
Are any of them as dangerous as the ones in your books?
Not quite, but there were definitely a few where they kind of imagined that there were hauntings happening during the book group. And yet some of the emails that pass between different book groups, what I wanted at my house, now I'll have it at my house. And I could just, see that in a book, that people, the little bits that go on behind the scenes. And, I've been to a few where they get, we'll have to get the caterers in for this. And they're kind of sneaking people in the background because you think you've gone for dinner. And yeah, they're quite interesting places, I think.
Joe Singleton wants to know if, once you've had an idea for a book, you decide how many characters you're going to kill off, or does it depend on how you interact with the characters?
I think it depends on how I interact with the characters. There'll be a principal murder, basically. And so, for instance, with the third book, I really wanted to do a locked room, with an actual locked room in a castle, and see if I could do something that was a little bit more modern with that. So that's the whole basis of it. But then I kind of thought through and thought, hang on, in a castle, you've got so many ways of killing people. There's a ducking stool, there's a priest hole, there's all these fantastic things you can do. And often I think in lots of golden age crime, there are a number of murders because it's never clean. You never get away with just killing somebody off and then they've got to work out who did it. Other people have seen things that either the murderer thinks people will work out they've done it from, or they are a real danger to the murderer. So often I think you have to have some ancillary murders tacked on as well.
Joe also wants to know if you base any characters on members of your ex-book groups.
Not specifically. There were a couple of instances where things happened and I sort of alluded to them in the book, but there's nobody who is specifically a person.
Do you do you ever wonder that members of your book group will read your book and then like slowly uninvite you with all the cunning ways?
My current book group, which I've been with for a long time, have read it and they've been very lovely and they are all very lovely people. I'm not entirely sure that the people who I was previously in book groups with read many books. So I don't think there's much danger there. They were kind of more based, as they are in the Smart Woman's Guide, on, getting a bottle of Prosecco open and telling you the local gossip.
And Margaret Murphy said she was lucky to get an early copy, and as you know, loved it. There's a strong Gothic element in the novel. Is that something we should expect more of in the future? You won a fiction prize, didn't you?
I did, yes. That was for my short fiction. I love Gothic fiction. And thank you very much to Margaret Murphy, who I'm a huge fan of. And I was so pleased when she said she'd read my book and that she liked it as well. But I absolutely love Gothic in crime fiction, especially. I love where it intersects. I love what people like Sarah Ward have been doing, Rhiannon Ward with The Quietening. And I love things like Mortmain Hall, where there is that classic kind of, the setting has already done it for you. A lot of the work, you walk in and it's, the doors are creaking and the windows are shaking. So yeah, there's a lot more Gothic settings to come. So the third one is going to be in a castle on Dartmoor, which I'm loving writing about Dartmoor. And there's lots to do with, the Hound of the Baskervilles and all that kind of thing. And then I'm thinking for the fourth one, I really like the idea of starting in a courtroom, but a really kind of old-fashioned courtroom. And it's going to be largely based on perhaps one of the forts in the Solent, because a lot of those are, they're quite dark and creepy places.
Charlie wants to know what your favourite motivation for murder that you've used.
My favourite motivation for a murder? I think, I don't want to give too much away, but in the first one, I think that the motivation of I think I would probably say blackmail. And somebody who's blackmailing somebody, the fear that that would bring that person, of knowing that they were going to be exposed, that their life was going to collapse around them, that was a really, really powerful one. And to think that she would go to those lengths without giving too much away. But yeah, I reckon, yeah, blackmail is a big motivational one, I think.
There's a clever use of no, I can't say without giving away anything. There's a really clever murder in the second book I particularly liked.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I don't want to tell anyone and spoil anything.
Okay. Well, they have to go and read it now, won't they? They have to go and read it.
Yeah, I'll have to go and read it and find it out. One of the first ones, Sam says, what's it been like being part of the D20 group? She imagines.
Oh, absolutely fantastic. I know a few of them are having a book launch tonight, so they couldn't be here tonight. But they've been amazing. They're so supportive. And, you know, because obviously it's a private Facebook group, so we can talk about pretty much everything from people's huge successes. And there's been, you know, Sunday Times bestsellers in there. There's people like Philippa East and Trevor Wood are in there. And they're just amazingly supportive. And everybody has the day when, you know, somebody puts up a 1-star and they're like, oh my God, what's happened here? Or they don't know. Or, you know, we're all so new to this. And we've launched at the most extraordinary time to launch a book. So we're all kind of floundering along saying, you know, do we do this? Do we do that? Is this normal? Who do I go to if I have a problem with this? How long do I wait for this to happen? And everybody's got a really brilliant shared experience of it. And, you know, every Friday we have a Zoom at 5:00, and there's serious stuff, and there's successes, and there's people who, you know, have been rejected for things, or they've got fantastic new deals. And it's also hilarious as well. We have a really good laugh. And for people, a group of people who I haven't actually met in real life, we're quite a close group now.
Have you, Sam asked further up in the stream, because the questions are going like ridiculously fast up here, how you found marketing The Body on the Island after the success of the Smart Woman's Guide to Murder?
It's been really interesting, actually. I've learned a huge amount. So I basically went from absolute zero with the Smart Woman's Guide to Murder, a complete rookie. I had absolutely no idea. I thought occasionally I could put up my book cover on Instagram maybe, and that'd be it. But I've discovered, you know, I didn't even know when I started on this journey of things that there were such amazing Facebook groups such as this one and the D20s. And it's been a very steep learning curve indeed. I can't believe it's been less than a year learning what happens and what not to do, and, you know, the things that, you know, not to just fill my feed with things like buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. And, you know, it takes a lot of my friends or, you know, my husband to say, you should really give people a bit more content than that. And be a little bit more interesting. But yeah, little things I've learned have been amazing that I had no idea would be something important or work. So I write about Agatha Christie and adaptations of Agatha Christie because I just like watching them, you know, and I watch a lot of them. And people got really interested in that and wanted me to go to things and talk about it and do, you know, festivals and stuff like that. And then obviously people get interested in the book. So that's been quite an interesting thing to learn, that I can do things that I really enjoy doing and share those with people, and that sort of increases their enjoyment of the book as well.
Oh, this is a good question. So Joe says, what would be the most important tip you'd give new authors, those starting out on writing a book?
Don't give up. That's the big one. I've been doing it for years. I suppose every single author says that. I think it's really rare that you get somebody who just, writes a book and gets it out there and it's a huge success. It is the daily slog and the taking of the rejections and the taking of, you need to change this needs to be different, and the building a bit of a thicker skin. But also, when you think you're there with the final thing, you're not. Just read it and read it and read it. The number of drafts that I go through is huge, and I still find things where I think, no, that doesn't work. And then, I always say, I must have gone through 10, 15 drafts of the first book. And then I wanted it to look like it was a set in a theatre where they were looking out and the snow landscape was kind of watching them and looking into the house. So I spent a lot of time talking about what she could see and what the landscape looked like outside. And an editor just put in the little comments in track changes, she can't see any of this. You close the curtains on page 10. Still after all those drafts. So any new writers, just keep going and write and write and write and reread the drafts constantly.
Sam says, how will you celebrate on the 23rd, which is publication day? And she's dropped the pre-order link into the chat.
Oh, thank you very much, Sam. Definitely pink champagne, which I have made my husband go and get. And then I think I'm doing some more interviews for people, which will be very nice. And, everybody makes it kind of very special, that sort of thing. But mostly it'll be quite quiet with my family. I won't do any work other than the interviews. I might even have, there was a cocktail that I invented for the book. And I think it's gone out with the art copies, not the actual cocktail. Don't anybody think you're getting a cocktail with it. It's a recipe for a cocktail. And it's damson gin and Prosecco and ice. And I might have one of those just to celebrate.
Nice. I like that you invented a cocktail to go with it. That's really
You've got to make damson gin. Oh my goodness. It's perfect. And of course, that's Miss Marple's favourite drink. She makes damson gin.
Does she?
She does. She's a quiet boozer on the side.
I'm quite partial to gin, but I've never tried damson gin.
Oh, it's good.
Is it? Right, it'll add to be added to my list. You had a really innovative way of keeping track of where all the characters were in your book. Tell us about that.
So for book 3, obviously, as I said, they're in a village on Dartmoor, and I wanted to add more people, basically, because even in the tiny hamlet that I'm in, there's actually quite a lot of people there. So if you have just 8 or 10 houses, you've still got a lot of characters, and then the smart women kind of move en masse. There's 5 of them moving around wherever they go. So there's a lot of people to keep track of all the time. And because they go to a castle, there's staff who are working there. And I kept forgetting who was in what house and who was in what room. And I think, oh, hang on, you can't just have somebody like a stormtrooper standing at the sides all the time. They would say something, they would do something, they'd be involved. Or I'd put someone somewhere and think, no, they weren't there, they left late. So my son built me the whole village out of Lego, and I now have a character for each person in that village. And it actually has worked enormously because I can move them around. I'm just wondering if there's any way I can show you, because it's just down here. Hang on, I'm about to pull it all over on it. If I can move that around and turn it down, there it is. You can just see it peeping out here. Here's the Lego village for book 3. And they move around. The only trouble is people come in and knock it over, so people look like they're dead, and they're not dead. So there's a lot of casualties that shouldn't be. I've even got Bridget has another pet for book 3. She has a different pet for each book. And she has, in book 3, she has a Sphinx cat because she doesn't like hair anymore. So it's going to be a bald cat. And we even have a little bald cat in Lego. It's amazing what Lego produce these days. I'm not sure they'd approve.
I think they probably would now. I think it's just an ingenious idea. There's lots of comments coming in. So Margaret Murphy says she's got some plum gin. She needs a recipe for damson.
Ooh, well, I'll make sure I get that to you, Margaret. It's very easy, similar. You freeze or prick your damsons, and then you put them in a ton of gin with a ton of sugar and put them under the stairs for a long time. That job done.
Janice Frost, who is from Lincoln, because she said hello from Lincoln earlier, which is my birthplace. So hi, Janice. So she loves the Lego Village. Charlie Gallagher says, "Right drunk, edit sober." Is this a mantra you agree with?
I have tried both. I would say, yeah, I stopped working at about sort of 5:30 for obvious reasons, and I just kind of think I'm exhausted by then. And anything I've ever written after a glass or 2 of wine, I kind of think this is marvelous. This is the best thing I've ever written. It's absolutely appalling. Unintelligible nonsense.
And Joe says you said about the cocktail invented for the book. Would you consider creating a music playlist to go with the book?
I would actually. I know a friend of mine has, Tom Benjamin. He's another crime author. I think he's in this group as well. He's in the debut 2020s. He has a playlist for it, and I thought that was such a fantastic idea. And my husband very kindly wrote me a piece of music that goes with the video to Body on the Island's little tiny sort of book trailer that everybody does these days. So yeah, I should do something like that. Definitely, that's a very good idea. I will have a look at that. Although it might be quite controversial, might it? What to put in and what not to put in.
I think it's when I've seen them work well, it's often things that give a flavour of the characters or the location. So I've seen like Nick Quantrill did one for his books, but then Hull has got a really strong music scene. So
right,
makes sense.
It might be quite difficult for Body on the Island because obviously they're on a really remote island in difficult conditions, and the concept of there never being silence was a big thing for me, because although everybody loves the sound of the waves, I think if you were trapped on an island that was quite an aggressive environment, the constant sound of that, the wind, all quite imposing. So I wouldn't want that to interfere with it. But I did, for the 3rd book, I've been looking at myths and legends on Dartmoor, and there's a fantastic myth of a lady called Kitty J, and I think there is a guy who writes music about that as well, but I think he might be quite famous. So I'm not sure. I don't know about the copyright business to do with all that as well, kind of putting it all out there and saying, yeah, it's Christmas time, I've just got Mariah Carey on my playlist.
Samantha says, how do you research for each story? Have you undertaken any courses, and has anything you've ever found out surprised you?
Yes, lots. For the 2nd book, for Body on the Island, I was really ill in bed with shingles, and I couldn't go out because I've got it in my head and it was all over my head, and you take a lot of strong painkillers. It's quite debilitating. And I started reading some old books that I borrowed from the London Library, which were just about the folklore of these particular islands. And I read, and that oral tradition of stories there is amazing. And I learned so many, and a lot of them are in the book. So the awful story of the coffin boy and the one of the witch who has horseshoes nailed to her, and all of those are stories from their folklore, and the druids and what they did in those islands. So I learned a huge amount. I suppose the danger is you get so far into your research that you can't use all of it. And at some points, you know, you're in risk of it becoming a guidebook. So when I was in Stornoway on it, I'd be saying, you know, and going through here, you would be passing the police station. and so a lot of that sort of has to go because it's not a guidebook. But I try to squeeze in as much of the research as I can. But it's quite tempting just to sit doing the research for long periods of time because it's so fun and it's so interesting. But actually nothing's getting written then at all. And it is a bit of a way of putting off doing the work as well after a while.
Sam wants to know if you've had any mishaps during one of your interviews. I think this is to make herself feel better because she threw all the books all over the place last week when she was interviewing someone.
Any mishaps during my interviews? Oh my goodness, many. I think, gosh, I do a live reading I think it's every Thursday morning. I should know now, I've been doing it for so long. And there have been so many with that because we all kind of started out doing this, and the technology, I had no idea what I was doing. And I'd set my seat where I thought it should be and everything, and it's one of those with the crank handly thing, and the whole thing just went, and I just disappeared off the screen. And you just have to style it out a bit, don't you? Just like, I'm sure this can be edited out later. It's the live ones like this though where it can't. Oh, but I have all sorts. You know, I've got a little boy, and occasionally you hear him running in and out, or you know, appearing in the background. But I think everybody's got really used to that. You know, it's on if the BBC can do it, I'm sure it's okay for me.
I think it adds to the flavour, doesn't it? You know, it's part of you're streaming live from your own home. Things are going to go wrong occasionally.
Oh my goodness, yeah. All kinds of things go wrong. or somebody else is on a Zoom in another room and you can hear what they're saying and you think, oh no, it's going to be coming up on somebody else's stuff.
Sam says it's clearly on her mind, but our authors have been just as clumsy. That is true. Some of them have dropped things onto their own heads in the thing. But then she's put in asterisks, it's no authors or interviewers were harmed.
No, there's been no actual physical damage. I've got cats as well, and I think I've got animals, children, the whole bag, you know, and there's stuff going on. Or you see things in the background and you think, oh God, the washing's on display. I'm trying to be really serious about, you know, murder and crime writing, and there in the background is, you know, Jim Kitten.
Have you got anything else in mind to write after you've finished The Smart Women, or do you have like another kind of project that you'd quite like to do?
I've got a couple actually, yeah. I really wanted to do a standalone gothic kind of novel, full on, you know, the big old Jane Eyre setting, and there's something in the woodshed sort of thing. And so it would have that air of mystery. But as with the Smart Women's Guide, I like introducing some of the supernatural into things. And I want to take that a little bit further and just do a standalone one. But I'd also been toying with another character who isn't fully formed yet, but I really like the idea of a young woman, and it would be in the past, and some sort of archaeological situation. So possibly an archaeologist, explorer style woman, and yeah, gets over those problems of constantly saying, but someone would have a mobile phone at this moment. Surely someone's on the internet.
I Publishing writers are quite inventive of solving those problems, though, aren't
Yeah.
they?
Oh yeah, I kind of wanted someone who's a bit more daring do as well. I love all the ones set in ancient Egypt and all that kind of thing on digs, and I love that kind of thing. But also I love the sort of the concept of the past meeting with the present as well, and I'd love to do something like that as well. Another character alongside, but there's a long way to go yet. There's only so many hours in a day.
How long does it take you to write a novel then? How long did The Body on the Island take?
Well, Body on the Island, I would say roughly a year, from research to getting it down on paper and having it in a form that I'm happy with. But then, of course, it goes through a number of edits with the publishers as well, where they go, okay, we've got a rough version to go with now. Oh no, I thought I was absolutely nailed this. So I'd say roughly a year.
Jo says you've got some very full bookcases.
I have, and I don't know which way around would I be, kind of, it's all backwards. Is it these here, these green ones here? I love the Penguin Crimes, and I put up a picture of a few that I got on Facebook, and Sarah Ward said, I've got some spare ones I don't want that are duplicates. Can I send them to you? And I'm like, oh my God, yes. And so she sent me some, and those are there, whichever way I am.
That's amazing.
So, yeah, and gosh, we have a lot of full bookcases that I have to curl all the time. But my stuff creeps into all the bookcases, and you know, my husband's like, how many full sets of Agatha Christie's works do you need? You know, you need your posh set that doesn't get read. It's there for, you know, that's nice. Then you've got your ones you read. Then you've got your special one. So I think, you know, yeah, lots of copies.
He also said, do you have a favourite book or a book that you always remember from childhood?
I do have a favourite, but it's Rebecca. So not essentially a murder mystery as such, but it's kind of my comfort read that I go back to. And it's really interesting when you have a book like that, you know, you read it when you first come to it as you know, well, a child really, you know, probably about 12, I suspect, or 13. And that whole concept of Max and the big house, and then wow, this is amazing. It's so romantic and amazing. And then when you're sort of, you know, in your older teens and 20s, really relating to that concept of, oh my God, I feel inadequate. There are always better, more sophisticated people than me, and she has that all the time with Rebecca. And then when you get to sort of my age, thinking, you know, sort of like with Mr. Rochester, they've either chained their ex-wife up in the attic because they're mad, or just killed them. Okay, perhaps not the hero we're looking for.
Samantha asks, what have you enjoyed the most in the run-up to publishing book 2?
Oh, gosh. I would say the company of other authors. Particularly, I'm really, really lucky to be at Joffy Books. The Joffy authors are, and I think there's a few on the chat tonight, that they're just so supportive. I had no idea what a community writers are. And, you know, all kinds of people who don't need to give you any help. You know, they're really big authors. They just want to, you know, and they're lovely and supportive. Because I'd always imagined writing being quite a solitary thing and not actually, you know, seeing other people or being with other people. And, you know, part of this crisis has meant that I have made a lot more effort to be on things like this. And I love this kind of thing and talking about books. Yeah, all that's been amazing.
Have you been to any physical author events yet?
No!
Real world, real life ones?
No! Years ago, I self-published a a historical fiction thing, and my local book shop said, why don't we have a little drinks party? So that's it, nothing else. You know, obviously I've been to things like Hay as a punter, but I've not done anything. So there's a lot lined up, a lot lined up now. I'm going to have a big launch party.
You are. And on that, Sam asked, what would be your dream book launch event? What would be on the list for it alongside Pink Champagne?
Definitely Burr Island. And I definitely have to get people to go on the sea tractor, which is probably lots of you know about it. It's a tractor, obviously, but because it's the kind of island where the causeway floods, if you have to come over at high tide, the tractor has a big kind of contraption on the top where you can sit and it drives through the sea. But yeah, big cocktail party there. That would be, yeah, amazing. With everybody and all the wonderful authors and readers. It would be so nice.
Joy Ellis says it's lovely having you on the team.
Oh, she's been amazing. They all have. We've been so welcoming. You know, I think part of it's quite good because it's done online a lot. So I'm not hugely starstruck by these people in person, where I just be like, oh, I have time to think and just type something. Go, thank you. That's really kind.
I don't know. I wouldn't imagine other authors being starstruck by each other.
Oh yeah, because they're like your superheroes, aren't they? You know, they're these people you kind of hold up there. I think, yeah, I had to sit down for a long time when Martin Edwards put something on one of my posts. It's just like, oh, he's just up there.
Joy's in for your launch event on Burr Island. She said she likes.
I think I'll have a big take up, won't I? And you've all got to wear big cocktail dresses, the whole 9 yards.
Helen Durant says ditto what Joy said about having you on the team.
Oh, that's really kind.
She also said, when did you start writing and when did you first become attracted to Agatha's works, and have you ever been to the Hebrides?
So 3 big fantastic questions. I've always been writing since I was, you know, a young kid, planning out my author name, stuff like that, and all that kind of jazz, and yeah, writing little stories and that. And obviously, you know, I've had the kind of background where that would have been nice, and lots of people do come from that sort of background and become writers, but I had to get a job, and I thought, you know, so I was a lawyer for a long time, and then I was still writing the short fiction, and then I started to get a bit of it published and thought, this is really good, this could actually work, this could be a job, a real job. And then I won the Gothic Fiction Prize, and thought, I'm gonna go for this. And Joffy picked me up and gave me the deal, and that was it. You know, hit the ground running. But I suppose I've always been writing for a long time. But Agatha Christie, I think I first read one of her books, and then there were none, when I was 8 years old. And it's the sort of book where obviously the themes and what's happening in it are very non-childlike, but people of all ages read her books. And, you know, you'd sit and watch a Poirot with your child, and, you know, someone's being bumped off over here, having a throat slit here, or, you know, poisoned over here. You're like, oh, this is good Sunday night family viewing, isn't it? So I've been reading Agatha Christie since I was about 8 years old. And the last question was,
have you ever been to the Hebrides?
No, I was meant to. So the island that it is set on, I discovered through these wonderful photographs, and I got in touch with the photographer, and he lives there. And he said, look, I've got the mobile number of the guy who owns the place. He doesn't live there, obviously, but they do occasionally go and stay there. I've got to give this a go. So I phoned the guy, and he's so lovely. he's such a nice guy. And he said, look, we still take the kids over there for summer sometimes. It's really good fun. There's no electricity. There is water, but obviously there's no communication. You're very welcome to come across with us. So we got all this sorted. I was going to go there. But then, of course, the current crisis hit. So it's still a work in progress, that one. I don't know what he'll think of the book, because I'm not sure I've painted his family holiday home very well.
He'll probably be thrilled. Did you send him a copy?
I'm going to, yeah. And, you know, I'm going to send the photographer guy as well. I then discovered that the guy who took the photographs was the drummer in a band called Buzzcocks. And he's just living out in this kind of wilderness out there it's all very beautiful and amazing, but I had to do it all from the books and photographs. So in a way, that might be a better thing, so I haven't been too influenced by what it actually is like. So I have added things that aren't on the island. So for instance, I love the concept of Scottish bodies, and I really wanted to put one on, and there isn't one on the original island. So I stuck one on. But yeah, I think my family are kind of had enough of watching things about Hebridean islands.
Charlie Gallagher said that we're all struck by Joy Ellis. It's part of the initiation ceremony.
Definitely. You're just like, what, the Joy Ellis? Okay, cool.
Joe Singleton said he's going to get his cocktail dress out of the closet.
Excellent. That is the dress code for all comers.
It's going to make it even more entertaining, isn't it?
Yeah. Is that or you have to come as Agatha Christie?
Oh, Janice Frost, that is a brilliant question. She said, if you could time travel and meet Agatha, what would you ask her first?
I think someone has to pick me up off the floor first. What would I ask her first?
I think Janice is winning question of the night.
Definitely. Who do you like more, Poirot or Marple?
Oh, that's a good question.
But I don't know whether she'd enjoy that question, because I know she used to get, well, from, you know, the things she writes, that she did get quite frustrated with Poirot and having him there all the time. And obviously he was quite old to start off with. They both were. So, you know, I think it would have been 100 and something by the end of the last book.
If it went, like, properly.
If the time scale was right, because I don't think she ever imagined he'd go on for so long. Thankfully, she never did it, you know, she never killed him off until the end.
Joe Singleton also wants to know if you write any poems or flash fiction.
I have read a little bit of flash fiction, more short stories that are quite short, I'd say. But I like a longer short story as well, but not at the moment. I haven't, because I've been so tied up with the two books. But I do love, I think when I've, you know, finally got the third book off to the publishers, I've got a short story that I've been working on. But poetry, no, not yet.
And Sam says, who do you like more, Poirot or Marple?
Oh, gosh. It depends which day of the week it is, I think. I think I'd have to go Poirot. Because there's more. Basically just because there's more. But I love Miss Marple so much that seems a bit disloyal to her. I'd have loved them to have met in real life as well. Well, in real life of books, you know, so that is real life, really, isn't it?
How much of a say do you have in your book covers and things? Because I really like the cover to both, and I think they're quite unusual. And that stand out a bit more.
Yeah, I'm not I don't have a huge amount to do with the covers, although, you know, as the Joffrey authors are on here, would say, you know, whatever you say that they're happy, and you know, if I'd said I didn't like her, but I was absolutely blown away by both of them. I thought they were so beautiful and really captured that sense of their golden age, but they're updated, and there is a darkness to them. You know, they're not meant to be. Sometimes it's classified as cozy mystery, but they're not particularly very cozy. There are, you know, ghosts and nasty things happening, and people with bad anxiety and all those kind of things. So I absolutely love the covers they do there. When the second one came through, I was like, I need to see the cover, I need to see the cover. And they sent it through. I literally screamed in the kitchen, and they're so beautiful, and they really sum up the books as well.
I don't know that I'd define your books as cozy with the body count that you have in them.
I know, but some of these cozy mysteries out there, they're slaying. But yeah, I do. A lot of American readers do go, oh yes, it's cozy mysteries, and I think, oh no, I'm not so sure it is. But you know, you're very welcome to try.
Has anyone ever like bought it thinking it's that and then said?
No, there's been a few people going, oh, there's some really nasty people in this book, and I found that just astonishing. And a couple of people have said, you know, not people I know, but have said, oh my goodness, some of these characters are just awful. And you think, well, I wrote characters where you had to believe that they were capable of taking a human life for quite often flippant reasons. They're not necessarily the nicest of people. And so I found that quite bizarre that people were saying, you know, some of these people are really nasty, murderers, or would-be murderers.
Would you write any like spin-off stories or like more backstories for some of the other characters?
I think I'd really like to do that, particularly, I mean, I can't, because of the way the first book has gone, I can't write the story of what happened to her dad, which would be the fairly obvious one. And also Ursula would be quite young in that. But I'd definitely like to do something like that. Or bring back characters from previous books, which I'm hoping to do with the fourth one. Also killing off characters. I'm quite enjoying doing that. Like major characters where people go, oh, you cannot kill her. She's central. She's one of them.
Oh dear. Is that what's coming up for us?
I think there's got to be a little bit of that. But I suppose, yeah, you can't really kill off, you know, the main character, because then there'd be no voice. But unless the voice shifts.
With you, I'd believe that you would as well.
It might be quite good fun, actually, if you just have maybe not a playlist, but just say, I need you to photograph your face on page whatever. At the moment when you're, you know, primary characters, it's like killing off as Marple.
Because I'm really bad with character names in general. You'd think I'd be really good being a teacher as well, wouldn't you? But it's terrible. The lady with the cat, who's like quite grumpy. She's just like what I want to be like when I'm older.
the one with the cat?
Yeah.
Oh, Bridget. You see, Bridget has to be there. In the first one, the number of times people said, it's Bridget. Bridget's done it. Because she is so... Well, she's very similar to lots of people I've met in real life, you know? There's sort of people where you just think, how are you saying that? Saying that to my face.
Absolutely love her.
And the dog, you know, the complete... Oh, I have to be careful with that, though. The one I have been told repeatedly, the one thing I cannot kill off is the dog.
We're getting near the end of our time. Sam says, how does it feel being part of a team with Draft Books and the support that other people being involved in promotion, etc. bring? Oh,
it's just amazing. It's just incredible. You know, there's all this, it's like a huge family. And I know people say that kind of thing, but it genuinely is. And when you just it's just that this huge, lovely group of people who are wonderful. And when you have a problem, you just go, I don't know what to do. And they go, okay, don't worry. This is okay. This is fine. So, you know, like tonight, I said to some of the other authors, oh, I'm really nervous. I don't know what to do. And they've all come on and asked questions, which is brilliant. But the whole team at Joffrey Books are just, they're sensational. They're just doing something that is so forward looking that I'm not, you know, you're never told what to do. It's just as if you're just working with, well, you're working with these amazing people who all know the industry so well, but they kind of, they're so gentle with it as well. And they just say, you know, how about this here? And you just think, oh, that's a great idea. That's brilliant. And it hasn't happened to me yet, but if there was ever, there was one thing when they said, we thought about maybe changing the title, because every single one was going to be the Smart Woman's Guide too. And somebody there suggested, you know what, if you do that with the second book, you're going to have to do that with every single book. And you're stitching yourself into that completely, and you just have to carry that on all the way through. And I thought, oh God, you know, I hadn't really considered it like that. I just thought of it as it will always be the Smart Woman's Guide too. So it was going to be the Smart Woman's Guide to Survival. But actually that does sound a little bit like a kind of self-help book, which would be very bad if someone picked this up as a self-help book. And now seeing Body on the Island, it's just, oh, amazing. But they're just an amazing team of people who are really caring as well, which I think is so important, and they're just fantastic.
Why would you be nervous of coming and talking to us? You're fabulous.
Because I'm prone to a massive, you know, doing something ridiculous in the middle of something.
Joy says she just wants to check that you're wearing PJs and big fluffy slippers.
I've got the slippers on. Hang on. I've got the slippers. They're probably really horrible ones, actually, aren't they? Oh, hang on, I'm the other way around, am I? I've got this. Can you even see those? We can't even see them. Hang on, there we are. There's the slippers.
It's a thing. Perfectly acceptable to be wearing your slippers doing a thing. And Sam says she's enjoyed it. Jo says they've enjoyed the interview. Do you want to just give us a reminder as Body on the Island?
Okay, yeah, we've got the cover, looks something like this. There we are.
Oh, that's fabulous.
And it is the smart women are going on a survival course, ill-advisedly, to an island, and it's a survival course where they go to the wrong island, basically, and it's uninhabited. There's no electricity, there's no food, no Wi-Fi, and then the murders start. And the question is it one of their own very small group of people, or is there somebody else or something else on the island?
And it's a good read.
Thank you very much. And it's out on the 23rd of February.
And if you scroll up past all the questions, there is a pre-order link.
Excellent. Yeah, it is available for pre-order as well. So yeah, very exciting times. And yeah, try the cocktail.
I still love that you did that. Thank you so much for taking part.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been brilliant. Thank you.